Do you think dinosaur extinction was simply an asteroid hitting Earth, and then all dinosaurs disappeared in a single moment? It was not that simple. The truly terrifying part was not the rock itself, it was what happened after it hit Earth, because after the impact, the rules of the entire world were rewritten. In the final days of the Cretaceous, the dinosaur dynasty was standing at its peak. Tyrannosaurus rex patrolled the land. Triceratops gathered across the plains. Ankylosaurus moved slowly forward, dragging its heavy tail club. Pterosaurs crossed the sky. Mosasaurs waited in the dark depths of the ocean. Land, sky, sea, almost every part of the world carried the shadow of Mesozoic giants. If you were standing in that age, you might think dinosaurs would rule forever because they were too successful, so successful that Earth almost seemed as if it had been built for them. But they did not know that beyond the sky, something that belonged to no ecosystem was already moving toward Earth. It had no teeth, no claws. It could not run. It did not chase prey, but it was more terrifying than any predator because its target was not one animal. Its target was an entire age. When that visitor from space slammed into Earth, the energy released in that instant was far beyond anything any living creature could understand. The ground was torn open. Heat swept across the land. Shockwaves spread outward. The ocean rose into enormous tsunamis. The sky was lit by fire. Countless fragments were thrown into the air, then fell back down like burning rain. In that moment, Earth was not simply struck. It was as if the universe had slammed down a reset button. But if you think all dinosaurs died in the first second, then you underestimate the disaster. What truly destroyed the dinosaur dynasty was not the first moment. It was the days that came after. Dust, smoke, and debris were blasted into the sky. Sunlight was blocked. The world began to darken. Temperatures changed violently. Plants began to disappear on a massive scale. And once plants began to fail, the entire food chain started breaking from the bottom. That is the cruelest part of dinosaur extinction. No matter how powerful the bite of T-Rex was, it could not bite through a darkened sky. No matter how sharp the horns of Triceratops were, they could not push back the missing sunlight. No matter how thick the armor of Ankylosaurus was, it could not protect itself from the collapse of the food chain. When plants declined, large herbivorous dinosaurs felt the pressure first. They needed enormous amounts of food. They needed stable environments. They needed wide spaces to move through. But when forests withered, when vegetation disappeared, when the climate became chaotic, their massive bodies became a burden. Once the plant eaters could no longer hold on, the predators began to lose their prey. T-Rex stood at the top of the food chain. It looked unbelievably powerful, but the top of the food chain has never been the safest position. In fact, it is the position most dependent on everything below it. When the bottom breaks, the top collapses with it. So the dinosaur dynasty was not defeated by a stronger monster. It was hollowed out from the foundation by the world itself. That is what made this disaster so terrifying. It did not fight you face to face. It did not care whether you had teeth. It did not care whether you had horns. It did not care whether you had armor. And it did not care how long you had ruled Earth. It simply took away the sunlight. It took away the plants. It took away the stable climate. It took away the world you depended on. And once that world was gone, all strength became meaningless. This is Earth's coldest rule. It does not give special treatment because you were once glorious. It does not save a seat for you because you ruled for more than 100 million years. Once the rules change, everything that once gave you an advantage can instantly become a burden. The larger the body, the more resources it needs. The more complex the ecosystem, the more vulnerable it becomes. When the foundation breaks, the higher you stand, the louder the fall. But this extinction did not erase all life. Some creatures survived in the ruins. They were not huge. They were not majestic. They did not stand at the top of the food chain. But they had another advantage. They were small. Being small meant needing less food. Being small meant hiding more easily. Being small meant being able to slip into burrows, hide underground, and survive in places giants could not enter. They could eat seeds. They could eat insects. They could eat carrion. They could eat whatever they could find. The small mammals that once hid under the shadow of dinosaurs finally waited long enough for the world to become quiet. They did not defeat the dinosaurs. They simply survived the darkness that dinosaurs could not survive. That is the greatest irony. At the brightest moment of the dinosaur dynasty, these small creatures did not look like the future main characters at all. They could not be too bold. During the day, they moved more safely. At night, whenever they heard the footsteps of giants, they had to hide in cracks and shadows. But when Earth turned the page, the giant in the center of the stage fell silent. The horns broke. The armor stopped moving. The giant jaws no longer roared. The footsteps slowly disappeared, and those tiny, overlooked lives began to step out from the corners. Of course, dinosaurs did not vanish without leaving a trace. One branch of dinosaurs survived in another form. They became lighter, smaller, feathered, and eventually they became the birds we see today. So strictly speaking, dinosaurs did not completely disappear from Earth. What ended was the dynasty of giant land dinosaurs. The disaster at the end of the Cretaceous did not turn off life itself. It turned off the lights of the Mesozoic giants. After that, Earth no longer belonged To T or Rex, it no longer belonged. To Triceratops, it no longer belonged. To Ankylosaurus, it no longer belonged. To those enormous rulers of the land, the old dynasty left the stage. New life stepped forward. Mammals began to spread. Birds continued to fly. Plants returned. Across the land, ecosystems slowly recovered. On top of the ruins, Earth wrote a new page. That is what makes Dinosaur Extinction so shocking. It tells us that strength does not mean eternity. You can stand at the top of the food chain. You can fill the land. You can leave your shadow across the sky. You can make an entire age. Remember your name, but you can never guarantee that the rules of the world will not suddenly change. When the world supports you, you are the ruler. When the world changes the rules, you may not even have time to hear the reason for your exit. The dinosaur dynasty was once so enormous, so brilliant, so unstoppable, but in the end, Earth did not send a stronger dinosaur to defeat them. It simply darkened the sky. For a while, it reduced the plants, it broke one layer of the food chain, and then the dynasty that had ruled Earth for more than 100 million years began to collapse. So dinosaur extinction was not just a simple impact story, it was a story about rules, a story about how a world can push the most powerful life to the peak, and then, when the next page turns, remove it from the throne. On this planet, no ruler truly belongs to eternity. A dynasty is only one brilliant page in Earth's archive, and on that day, Earth turned off the lights of the dinosaur dynasty.